Hello, Old Outdoor Broad here, coming to you today from Knoll Lake, which is on the Mogollon Rim in the Coconino National Forest in northeastern Arizona. 7,000 feet, so different temperature up here than down below where I drove up from. That being said, what I want to do today is wrap up my formal coverage, for lack of a better word, of my Aliner Ranger 12. It's been a little over a year now that I've had it, and what I want to focus on today is things that haven't gone well and things that became apparent like immediately, even though I've had it over a year. Most of the things I'm going to talk about happened very, very quickly. Before I do that, just a very, very quick overview of the outside features, which I don't think I've talked about too much. I do want you to know I have two 20-pound cylinders of propane on the tongue. So gobs of propane. Also on the tongue, I have my 100 amp hour Battle-Born lithium iron phosphate battery. So those two items are mounted on the tongue. Keep in mind the propane came with. The battery was extra because this can go on a hookup, and not everybody necessarily is going to go without hookups. You know, a lot of people just go to spots that have hookups for RVs. So keep in mind that was extra. In the back of the unit is the spare tire. Now, in the back also is a receiver. So this is important because the spare tire, I asked for it to be mounted in back, and they said, fine, we can do that, but you will not be able to use the receiver. So keep that in mind. If you want a receiver, like for a bike rack or a hitch rack or anything like that, that may take advantage of that, you're going to have to figure out what to do with the spare tire if you choose to carry a spare, right? One other thing I do want to say, I got a lift kit and I got off-road tires because I knew I was going to be taking it off-road. This trip alone, about 10 miles of off-road. Now, it wasn't rough road compared to like when I'm out in the wildlife refuge, it's a little rougher, but it's dirt road nonetheless. And of course, if it happened to rain, I could be in a situation where that's kind of muddy. So the tires and the lift kit, that was extra as well. As a matter of fact, let me show you the tires so you know what I'm talking about. So there it is. There's one of the tires, and we'll get a good look at it there. So those were extra. Those are not standard equipment. I had to request that those be put on. Whoops. Now, one other thing while we're staring at the tire, actually, let me see if I can do this without a lot of jerkiness. For your outdoor enjoyment, there is, this lip has been installed for a table. So the table would go over the lip and then a little leg would come down and hit against the side of the unit for outdoor living convenience. Also, it has two AC outlets if you need to use anything electric when you're living the outdoor life with this unit. And lastly, a female quick connect for propane. So you can set up a propane stove outside here, table to put the stove on in theory, and then plug in if you need any electrical items plugged in. So all those are also features of this unit. There are two outdoor storage bins. Both are also accessible from inside. And really, for features on the outside, that's all I have. So with that, let's get to my little laundry list of things that have gone awry. So this is one of those oddball things, but typically when I'm done with a trip, or even at gas stations, I do a little walk around. And as you can see, this screw is not screwed all the way in. It's backed out. And that happens, this is the back of the unit. It also happens around on the other side. And I just take a screwdriver and I screw them back in. but they keep coming out. So that is kind of a weird thing. Now, probably what I'll ultimately do one of these days is put a little super glue on them, screw them in, and hopefully we won't have that problem anymore. But that happened like on the very first trip. This also happened very quickly. Now, I mentioned in one of my other videos that because this collapses and it's hard-sided, there are rubs that occur. And this is the back wall, and this goes down first when you're packing the unit up. And that means the other half is kind of laying on top of it. And right here, I got a metal-to-metal rub. And if that, what I put on there, which is just a piece of indoor-outdoor carpeting that I glued over where it had rubbed through the metal, but if that weren't there, it would be aluminum. You would see the bright, uncolored, unpainted aluminum where it was rubbing through. So I put this piece of indoor-outdoor carpet over it to try and mitigate the effects of the rub. Now there are other rub points, and it could be that a part of this is how loose or how tight you have the latches. And I believe I mentioned that too. I had to loosen mine up a little bit so that I could easily get them open and closed. And this is just one of the issues that may or may not come along with that. I say that because I'm probably not going to test it and try tightening them up and see what happens at this point. But this rub happened, again, very, very quickly. Now, this may be a little hard to film, but this was one of the more frustrating things. I had issues with the cabinet hardware, and it started out with this top one. So one of the hinges here broke. I don't remember if it was the top or the bottom, but one of them broke. It's like it wasn't swiveling in the hinge. It was just bending the metal as you open and close the door. And it finally just totally broke, and I had to replace a hinge. Now, one contributing factor to that may have been that this was off alignment with these. So what happened was I was, opening, closing, and then one day this just broke, which I'd never seen. One of these things broke off. And my conclusion was it did that because it kept hitting into the middle of this, the roller itself, instead of, clamping around the roller. And so ultimately it just broke. So I had to replace that as well. Currently, there's an issue with the cabinet below that, and this is a big deal because this cabinet is main storage. I keep a lot of stuff in here, so I'm in and out of it more frequently than the one above. But I don't know if you can tell, but these rollers, turns out they are kind of pointed inward. They're not straight. And I don't know if they came that way, in all honesty, or if opening and closing has turned them. But now they're not lining up properly with the grabbers. And one of these days, you can see this is right on the floor, which means the only way for me to really look at this is I'm going to have to lay down on the floor and figure out what's going on. But it doesn't hold. And if I just squeeze these a little bit, it'll make it a little bit better. But what's happening is I'm arriving at my location and finding that that door is actually open a little bit, and that's not good. What you're looking at here is the curtain on the door. Now, my apologies for the background noise. I actually happen to be parked by some equipment and it's making quite a bit of noise. But this right here is a curtain attachment. And how this works is it's Velcro. And the idea here is that if you need to wash your curtains, you would just undo the Velcro, take them off and throw them in the washer and then put them back on. As you can see, the problem is they don't stay attached to the side of the unit. And this has happened, pretty much since I bought it. And it's happened to multiple curtains in the unit. So that is another little problem that came up with this unit. The final thing that went wrong, and this I had repaired, and it was the good news, it was covered under warranty. But I had been using the sink in the kitchen area for a while, and it was just fine. It's pumps water and works just dandy. So I finally go on a trip where I'm going to use the shower. I've made an extension for the shower. I have the shower floor. I have everything almost figured out with regards to the shower, but the upshot of it is I carried it with me. I took it out there, I set it up, and I say that because the shower floor is pretty heavy duty and it's heavy in weight as well. So it's, you know, it's not something, if I'm not going to use it, I don't want to be hauling it around and setting it up, right? Anyway, so I go through all of this. I was experimenting with some handling of the gray water, so I was going to do that and get my stuff, get my change of clothes, get undressed and get ready. I turned on the pump and, you know, everything, and nothing came out. Now, I know the water pump worked because, again, I've been using the kitchen water, and I knew that the water heater worked because I've been using the kitchen water. So I'm like, what on earth is going on? Now, water's kind of dribbling, but it's not flowing. It's just not coming through. So turns out that from the factory, the line to the shower was clogged. And so when I took it in for service, you know, I said, I got this problem with the shower. It's not working. And the thing is, we also didn't test the shower. We ran water in the kitchen, so we knew the pump was working, and just made this assumption that the shower was going to be fine. And it turns out it wasn't. So that was the last thing that went awry right out of the chute with this unit. Well, that's it for this episode, short and sweet. I hope it's been useful to you, and as always, I hope to see you in the old outdoors. Thanks for watching.